Robotic process automation is the creation and deployment of software bots designed to learn, mimic, and execute business processes. ServiceNow introduced RPA Hub as a platform capability in the San Diego release to support organizations in their adoption of hyper-automation strategies to deliver end-to-end automation. In today's video, we'll take on a simple online RPA challenge using RPA Hub. This challenge has been around for a while, and there are many solutions from various RPA tools out there. So let's see how we can solve this using ServiceNow's tool. Special shout out to Thomas, who proposed the original solution, and you can see his original article linked in the description below. So go follow him for more awesome ServiceNow content. Let me first explain the challenge. Once we navigate to rpachallenge.com, we are presented with a super simple form which captures multiple user details, such as name and address. On the left, we are also presented with a download of an Excel file, which we must use to pass in the details onto the form and submit for each individual role. The twist here is that every time we submit the form, the position of these fields will change. So how can the RPA bot enter the details from the Excel file into the correct field? At the end as well, there will be results for accuracy and how much time it took to complete the challenge. Our target here is 100% accuracy and less than 2 seconds. So now that you understand the challenge, let's start working on the solution. Here I've loaded up RPA Desktop Design Studio, and I'll be creating a new unattended automation. Unattended bots can be triggered from the ServiceNow instance in a flow, but we will run everything within the desktop as there is no need to trigger this process from elsewhere. With the blank canvas loaded, let's add in one of our required plugins, the Google Chrome plugin. This will allow us to interact with the Chrome browser, where the ServiceNow RPA extension was also automatically installed. Under our toolbox, we can then drag the Chrome connector and the Microsoft Excel connector into our global object, as we will be using these two applications for the challenge. We are now set up with all the components we need to build the bot process. The first thing the bot has to do is open the Excel file, so I'll first select the Microsoft Excel object, and that will expose the list of methods available for this under the Object Explorer. We need the open method, which we will drag and drop onto the start component to kick off the process. This represents the flow of steps with grey arrows. Now we need to tell the robot where to find the Excel file we downloaded from the website. So I'll copy the path and add it onto the file path field. We do not need to configure the rest of the parameters here. Next, we will open the rpachallenge.com webpage by using the navigate method under the Google Chrome object. Same as before, drag and drop it onto the next step node, and it will be executed in the right order. This time, instead of file path, we will enter URL for the RPA challenge webpage. Simple stuff so far, so let's run it once to see if it loads correctly. Okay, that looks perfect, and we have both the Excel file as well as the rpachallenge.com webpage loaded. We can also see the timing it took for each step here in the execution log on top of each component. Clearing the log will allow us to run this again and continue working on the bot process. Now that the webpage is loaded, what we will then need to do is capture all the elements of the webpage that we need to interact with. What we will do is configure the Google Chrome object, and we will add the webpage to pull elements from. Since we only have one browser tab open, this is the correct one to select, as we can see from the name, and we will add this screen. This will then show up in our web pages panel, and we can refresh it to see that it is found and is active. If we want to, we can play with the page match rules, which will improve accuracy, but we don't need to do that here as we are only working with a single web page. Let's capture all the elements for the screen. Right-click the RPA Challenge webpage and select Capture Element. This will bring up the RPA Challenge webpage, where we now have the element selector to choose the elements on the page that we will interact with. I will first capture all the form fields and the respective names of each. Next, I will also capture the two buttons on the page, the Submit button as well as the Start button. You can now see that all these page elements are registered under the RPA Challenge webpage. If we choose Refresh All, it shows a green status against each element, indicating that those elements are found. However, if we reopen the RPA Challenge website and refresh all the elements, you will notice that apart from the Submit button and the Start button, which are static, the rest of the fields cannot be found. Remember that this is one of the twists of this challenge, which we will need to solve, And the simple solution here is that instead of using ID as the locator of each element, we will instead select tag name, as this is consistent no matter the layout of the page. We will also need to match the attribute for the CSS element ngReflectName, as this is unique to every field. With all these filled, we now see that the field elements are accurately picked up even if we reopen or refresh the screen. Great, we now can then focus on filling this form up by starting the challenge. The user or bot has to click on the start button on the left, so we will first use the click method on the start button to simulate clicking on it. At this point, we need to get each of the rows data from the Excel file, and there are 10 rows in there. This is where we will use the for loop to iterate over each of the 10 rows and pass the data into the bot. Since we are ignoring the header, we will start from row 2 and end on row 11. This gets passed in as an index number in the next step to read from that particular row. What we will then do is use the getRowValues method, indicate we are reading from sheet 1, and pass in the row index from the for loop. We also have to tell the method which columns of data we are reading from, which is A to G, and we will be getting back string values. Now that we are able to get the values of each row, we can then tell the robot to pass that value into the form elements we captured earlier on in the RPA challenge webpage. At this point, it's as simple as just matching the getRowValue variables against each of the form elements to be filled. As a last step, the submit button needs to be clicked, so we will do that the same way we click the start button. This will end one cycle in the for loop and will repeat for all 10 rows in the Excel spreadsheet before ending the process. That's it. We've finished the bot process here, and all that's left to do is to test it. Moment of truth, how well will it do? .79 seconds, not bad at all. That's it for our video today. Feel free to try it out for yourself. If you have a better solution to cut down on the times further or to improve the bot process, do let me know. Until next time, no code, no problem.